Hello, my name is Douglas Comer, as many of you know, and I'm president of the International Council on Monuments and Sites. And we're here for the annual meeting for 2023. I want to welcome everybody. It has been a really amazing year. Now, I want to point out that the legal name for our United States, just something about the names. The legal name for our United States National Committee has been the same since it was formed in 1965. It was then and is now the United States National Committee of the International Council on Monuments and Sites, as I said. Today, the international working name is ICOMOS USA, and it's a new name for a new day. Also, we'll get into this later, we have recently formed a supporting domestic nonprofit called World Heritage USA. And as I say, we'll discuss that a bit more later. So I'd like to open the annual meeting of ICOMOS USA formally right now. After my brief comments, the first order of business will be the election of nominated members for our Board of Trustees. Then we will review some of the major activities of 2023 and take a quick look at what 2024 will offer. ICOMOS USA has begun to strengthen the connection between World Heritage and indeed heritage in all its forms with the urgent social and environmental issues of our time. Those of you who have participated in our webinars, our conferences, our meetings, and our celebrations know that we seek to utilize heritage to promote social justice, to advance the 2030 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and to stop the advances of climate change. We also strive to create a new heritage, one that draws from a much broader knowledge base than has been used in the past. This includes Indigenous knowledge and the voices and stories of groups that have been oppressed and unheard. This is a members' meeting. So I'm sure that most of you know the proud history of our organization. The United States National Committee was the first of what are now 105 ICOMOS national committees. And I know you know that the United States had the strongest influence on fashioning the World Heritage Convention in the early 1970s. Now, those were different times when the memory of world wars, devastation, and tragic beyond description were fresh to everyone. There were people alive that told those stories, and they touched everyone on Earth. They were world wars. Since then, engagement via international organizations has waned at times, as many countries feel removed from our conflicts that are still in process, and we all know that too well, but they don't involve the whole world anymore. So we've lost that memory. Recently, however, the United States declared that it would rejoin UNESCO. And with that, the time has come for the United States National Committee to again show the leadership that it has displayed in the past. Leadership suited to the challenges of today, including inequities in our social and environmental justice. In fact, these inequities lay beneath the human conflicts in the past, but they have emerged today even more alarmingly. The overarching benefit of membership in ICOMOS USA is belonging to an international community of appreciation and concern for universally significant properties that embody a world of outstanding example of cultural diversity and natural wealth. Members are part of a global network, largely comprised of academics and practitioners in the fields that are essential to heritage management and preservation. Representing fields as diverse as architecture, engineering, archaeology, tourism, and specialized disciplines that deal with the use of preservation of earthen architecture, wood, and stained glass. Members are able to join scientific committees on these subjects. Networking with colleagues around the world and creating doctrinal texts that are used by many practitioners worldwide. It's a huge contribution that the members of scientific committees can make to the world of heritage. Members are encouraged to go to World Heritage Sites, both as visitors and to meet with their colleagues. They are provided free entry and sometimes special entry into many World Heritage Sites. They have free access to the ICOMOS e-news and the ICOMOS Documentation Center, which has a storehouse of really often almost unique documents that are very valuable to people practicing heritage. They enjoy reduced prices for ICOMOS publications and have the opportunity to participate in the World Heritage work of ICOMOS through desk reviews and expert missions. So please renew your membership for 2024 if you have not done that yet. Now, if you're watching and you're not a member, please become one. And finally, if you're at all able, please donate to our organization so that we can continue and strive to expand the work that you will hear about during this meeting.
Thank you, Doug. Welcome, everyone. First, I want to say that we're saying a fond farewell and a large amount of thanks are due to two of our current board members who are leaving. Archer St. Clair is finishing her second full term, and Emily Choi has had to resign early due to personal reasons, but they've contributed significantly to the work of ICOMOS USA without question, and we thank them for their service and time. Now we're going to move to the election, and we have candidates for new terms, new candidates for whole terms. That's a 3-year term. We have 3 of them. And then we have 7 current members who are either have been filling a vacant term, unfilled term, or are being elected for their second full 3-year term. All of these 7 will serve 3 years henceforth, beginning in January. So Ariana, if you would put up the first candidate, Sylvia Cyrus. Some of you will know her. She's already a member of our advisory committee for the Monuments Project. She's executive director of ASALA, and has worked closely with us for a number of years. Next, please. Cynthia McLeod. Cindy, I've known for years, is the just retired Superintendent of Independence National Historical Park World Heritage Site in Philadelphia, and has been a longtime contributor to the Park Service and manager of numerous historical parks, and done quite a bit of international work in her career. Next. And Lynn Muskell. Some of you will know her. She is the University of Pennsylvania professor, and most significantly, I would say, because of its impact on me and others, the author of her book, A Future in Ruins, which is a description of UNESCO and many of its current problems and issues over time. She's done a great job with that book, and we hope she'll be a great addition to the board. And now to the 7 currently serving members who will be are being nominated for a full term. Katelynn Clark is the recently retired manager of Papahanau'o Mokoakea, the only U.S. inscribed joint natural and cultural site. Grant Gilmore is a professor at the University of Charleston. Arlene Pavon, former SHPO for Puerto Rico, an author of numerous books about the architecture of San Juan. Nancy Pollard Elwand is active with the scientific committees of UNESCO World Heritage Organization. Monica Rhodes, recently completed her time in Rome as the recipient of the Rome Prize, as well as a graduate degree at Harvard. Used to work at the National Trust and the National Park Foundation. Helene Silverman is a professor at the University of Illinois, and Amber Wiley is a professor at University of Pennsylvania and director of their Civil Rights Heritage Program. So all of these will be nominated for a new full 3-year term. If you could put the vote up, this is how it breaks down, but they're all getting a 3-year term. And here's your opportunity to vote. Of course, the board has approved them already, but it requires a membership vote. So please vote quickly. We won't leave this up long, and we'll announce the results shortly. I believe the vote has closed, and we're ready to move on to the next item on the agenda, I believe. One of the big events of the year was our symposium in San Antonio, and we had 4 major themes for that program. I'm going to describe 2 of them, and then others will describe the remainder, and we'll go on through the year in review. One of the most significant things that we have underway, and it will take time to accomplish, is to attain recognition for the indigenous cultural values in the natural areas in the U.S. World Heritage System. As you all know, there are 25 U.S. World Heritage sites. 6 of them are in their own right native cultural sites: Cahokia, Chaco, Mesa Verde, Poverty Point, Ohio Ceremonial Earthworks, and Taos Pueblo. But 12 of them are U.S. national parks inscribed as natural area World Heritage Sites. Their inscription does not mention the fact that each of them has a significant, in most cases, more than one native cultural affiliation. We want to work nationally and internationally to change that so that those cultural values are fully and wholly recognized. We had a panel discussion, an excellent one, I might add, of a number of representatives from various of these places, opening with Dorothy Firecloud, who is the native and a native attorney, but she is a National Park Service employee, superintendent, and now assistant to the director for Native American Affairs. Jan Balsam and her Navajo counterpart, Mae Franklin, spoke about the Grand Canyon and the great work that they're doing in acknowledging and establishing co-stewardship opportunities with the culturally affiliated tribes there. Katelynn Clark, whom I mentioned, spoke eloquently about the reasons why and successes of the joint inscription, natural and cultural inscription for Papanu'ukua Okuakea. Casey Cook, the superintendent of Mesa Verde, and her philanthropic partner representative, Randy Brown, spoke about the work they're doing with various tribes at Mesa Verde. And finally, Anthony Duran, who is the director of Historic Preservation for Taos Pueblo, told, I think, a very compelling story about how the Pueblo itself is required and doing the necessary investment for maintenance and restoration of the cultural houses and offices and buildings that are part of that native heritage site, and the need that they have for raising the money to accomplish those tasks. It was just a terrific panel. It was emotional, it was informative, and it was really useful. The second theme of the conference that I'll cover is that a number of World Heritage Sites, of these 25 that I mentioned, fall in major metropolitan areas. Obviously, we were in one of those in San Antonio. The Missions are a World Heritage Site, and the city has embraced that fact wholly and thoroughly. And a number of city representatives, both city employees and NGO leaders, spoke about the importance of integrating the World Heritage Site and its purpose and program and values with the tourism promotion development of the city. It is a major visitor destination, both domestic and international. And we had similar representatives from Philadelphia and New York on the panel to talk about opportunities in those places. And one of the reasons for doing it was that there are other cities that have nearby World Heritage Sites that could be doing the same sort of thing, but haven't done so yet. We want to encourage them to pursue that because it's useful for the World Heritage Site and it's useful for the city as well. And with that, I'm going to pass the torch on to leaders from the other two sessions at the symposium.
We all know what World Heritage Sites are, right? Places that possess one or more outstandingly universal values. What could be simpler? We know them when we see them, right? Yellowstone, the Statue of Liberty, Stonehenge, the Great Wall of China. But how does a place become a World Heritage Site? It ain't that simple. Our workshop provided an in-depth review of the World Heritage nomination process, from inclusion on the tentative list to secure a notice published in the Federal Register, which can lead to the preparation of a nomination overseen by the National Park Service, approved by the Federal Interagency Panel on World Heritage, and then the formal nomination, including World Heritage Committee desk reviews, site visits, and finally, if all goes well, and as provided by the World Heritage Convention, the nomination from the state party, the United States, to the World Heritage Committee for final action. What could be simpler? We were joined in San Antonio by leaders of the San Antonio Missions Campaign, the recent inscription of Ohio's Hopewell Ceremonial Earthworks, and current campaigns to inscribe the Okefenokee Swamp National Wildlife Refuge, and also the serial nomination of U.S. civil rights sites. To participate in this process, a site must be placed by a state party on the tentative list of World Heritage Sites. That is a fundamental and absolute requirement. The U.S. tentative list has a total of 19 properties, 11 of which are cultural and 8 are natural. The current list was created in 2008 and updated in 2017. You can see it on our website or the National Park Service website. The 2017 tentative list was intended to be the source of nominations for the next 10 years. The Park Service has no current plans to modify the list, and the World Heritage Committee accepts only one nomination from a country each year. Another property on the U.S. tentative list is the Moravian Church Settlement Site in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Earlier this year, the Department of the Interior announced that it was included in the first U.S. multi-country nomination to the World Heritage List, along with sites in Northern Ireland and Germany. We expect a final decision on this nomination in 2024. The formal notice of nominating a site to become a World Heritage Site is made by the Department of the Interior's Assistant Secretary for Fish and Wildlife and Parks by first publishing a notice seeking comments in the Federal Register. That was done most recently on June 27 and generated more than 10,000 comments, most supporting and none opposing the nomination of the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. There were additional comments supporting nomination of civil rights movement sites. On September 25, the Okefenokee took a major step towards its nomination when the Assistant Secretary announced her decision, with the advice of the Federal Interagency Panel for World Heritage, for the Fish and Wildlife Service to prepare a complete nomination. Another aspect of the nomination process can be an upstream review by the World Heritage Committee. This year, the National Park Service, for the first time, requested such a review of several sites identified in the proposal to designate civil rights movement sites. The results of that review were recently completed, and we are hopeful that it will result in a future U.S. nomination of these important places. Finally, the purpose of World Heritage status, of course, is to ensure the understanding and protection of these sites that exemplify outstanding universal values. Our session closed with San Antonio Mission's National Historic Park Superintendent Christine Jacobs describing their responsibilities to manage and periodically report on the status of a designated World Heritage Site. So we hope to see you at our next annual symposium next year. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wayne Donaldson, and I'm a trustee with World Heritage USA. And this is following our meetings that we had in San Antonio, Texas. And this is track 2, the U.S.-Mexico Collaborative Workshop, what we were planning on doing for this one track, and we have lots of speakers. But the purpose of the workshop was to discuss the following important themes to try to form a more genuine binational campaign. One is the future of the binational Transporter World Heritage Site nominations, a joint recovery campaign, the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom, and an analysis of social justice protests and monuments removal, which was very important. And then in addition to that, also to look at the future binational Transporter World Heritage nominations to include a cooperative Mexican-American amendment to the El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro's original UNESCO's designation to extend it from Chihuahua, Mexico to San Juan Pueblo, New Mexico. And then along with that, to also include the El Camino Real de las Californias from Balahoc, California to California, USA. We're also going to talk about the El Penocate Biosphere Reserve in Sonora, Mexico, with a possible sister American nomination of the Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument in Arizona. And then a formal inscription, designation, and recognition of the sister parks Monte Alban and Mesa Verde National Park. And then to finish up with the Trump wall as a focus of joint recovery campaign, since it has a detrimental effect on both sides of the border. We'll then talk briefly about the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom, which will showcase the transporter stories of liberation and resistance to slavery, which continue to motivate people all around the world to achieve their own self-determination and freedom from opposition. And then finally, the removal of their Christopher Columbus and Friar statues from Mexico City's iconic Avenue Paseo de Reforma as a result of George Floyd's 2020 social justice protests and the actions taken by the government of Mexico City. So as we started off with El Camino Real de Tierra adentro, Dr. Francisco Lopez noted how unique that the Mexican territory was interconnected since pre-Hispanic times by a remarkable and extensive communication network, whether in the arid desert of the north or in the deep jungles and lowlands of the southwest, as well as in the central highlands of the peninsula of Baja California and the Yucatan. These routes were kept alive until the Spanish conquest, giving rise to the road systems of the Viceroy. Along with the discovery of silver, the conquerors advanced towards the north, establishing a presidio or mission at each site, which of course grew to the origins of the modern northern cities and towns. The Royal Land Road inside, as it was called, also known as Camino de la Plata or Camino de Santa Fe, was the first great route of the unpopulated continental zone, and it became a very narrowed, furrowed line trampled by not only the early natives, but also to the hasty miners. This was also joined by Mr. Michael Taylor to give more description of the northern sections of the El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro, or known to us as the Royal Road to the Interior Lands, located in West Texas and New Mexico. And these sections have always been the subject of great interest on both sides of the border for over 40 years. The route is the earliest Euro-American trade route in the United States, tying Spain's colonial capital in Mexico City to its northern frontier in northern New Mexico. It was also part of the interpretation of the historic trail by various institutions led by INAD, which is the National Institute of Anthropological and History in Mexico, and by the National Park Service in the United States. These exchanges, as Michael had noted, generated many tools used to tell the story of this cultural route, as well as sharing of information on preserving the trail's irreplaceable cultural resources. And the US section of El Camino Real was designated as a National Historic Trail by the US Congress in 2000, a designation that heightened the cultural route's significance at the regional, national, and international levels. This was also followed by Dr. Francisco Lopez and Mr. David Bolton, who is Executive Director of the California Missions Foundation, and by Mr. Andrew Gavin, who was a curator at Mission Dolores and also a tribal member. This was the focus that we started to be on looking at telling the story of El Camino Real de las Californias, as was its officially given name during the Spanish period, and continues today as a much traveled route. Originally using the trails the first transversed by the indigenous peoples, El Camino Real Californias has had slight modifications over the years, especially in Baja California. And throughout its history, the El Camino Real de las Californias has linked not only the missions and the presidios, but the estancias, the ranchos, and the pueblos. And it continues to link the important cultural, historic, natural landscapes, the ecology, and the urban centers in both of the countries. So as we're going through this and looking at this, and this also started, approximately 20 years ago, in terms of making it a serious World Heritage Site, combining both Baja California and Alta California. But it also went a little bit beyond that, as we heard, that it begins a journey to tell our true original story of European contact in California. And it didn't start really as most of us grew up learning it in the 4th grade as the Pilgrims and the Mayflowers in 1620, but as Juan Enriquez Cabrillo in 1542 sailed San Salvador into the San Diego harbor. We also found that the Alta California El Camino Real wasn't just simply a road linking missions, but it was an early intermodal transportation network in which the majority of goods and people, knowledge, and political power grew principally by sea and then diffused over land. So the presentation was highlighted by Mr. Andrew Gavin, who is one of the mission Indians, and wanted to make sure that the true stories are told on how the missions were established, how the pueblos were established, and how this meant. Out of the 109 federally recognized tribes that we have in California, over 36 of those are mission Indians. And therefore, this story needs to include and be integral with the true story of how the movement north along the El Camino Real de Las Californias was actually done. We then heard from Dr. Nelly Robles Garcias on Monte Alban and Mission Verde National Park. And she described how this wonderful sister relationship was working that began over 20 years ago when Monte Alban and Mexico worked towards a partnership to join the efforts for better management in each site. And under the World Heritage Convention, an interesting action framework was developed. And at this end, not only Monte Alban and Mesa Verde were able to formalize a memorandum of understanding for mutual exchange and assistance, but also then gave further proof that this type of transboundary relationships that could come out of outcomes for sister parks initiatives or sister cities initiatives, both in the US and in Mexico, had great potential. Engineer Federico Gonzalez also gave a wonderful presentation to highlight the background and UNESCO recommendations for the operation and expansion of El Penacante and the Biosphere Reserve World Heritage Property. I think it was important how he highlighted the notice of the registration of the National World Heritage Property in El Penacante in Sonora, Mexico, almost 10 years ago, that had 3 recommendations for the 2 countries, both the US and Mexico. And he noted how the need for the 2 countries to agree and work together to create a transboundary protection area had to be managed as such, regardless of the current twinning of El Penacante with the Organ Pipe National Monument, to create a wildlife refuge, and recommended that it must also be included as part of the Tonojo Old Home Territory in Arizona. It had such important characteristics, he noted, to meet the requirements that it be a natural and cultural heritage of humanity due to the presence of the ancestral towns and part of the Anza Road to the Californians. And then finally, to work on the future to develop joint and binational activities for the protection of the Sonoran pronghorn, a species endangered of extinction. The Trump Wall was presented as this 120-kilometer long barrier between El Penacante in Mexico and the Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument and the Cabrizo Prieto National Wildlife Refuge in the US has been greatly impacted. In his presentation, he also wanted to mention efforts to try to mitigate its effect on the obstructed biological corridors and proposals for actions. And he presented 4 very important points that was discussed in detail. One was the background and the geographical location of the protected areas affected by the walls on both sides, mainly blocking the biological corridors and significantly affecting major fauna. Work carried out voluntarily with its own resources, and owners of the land were shown to mitigate these negative effects as much as possible. However, it all still continued to show that many of the animals and fauna, that surface water sources, were inaccessible on either side. So what resulted was a voluntary dedicated conservation area in El Bahalo for the preservation and increase of the population of the pronghorns and bighorn sheep. And then some of the great actions in order to mitigate this, and hopefully work with the Biden administration to take a look at removing some portions of this wall so that migration could occur between the US and Mexico. This was followed by Dr. Daniel Piot, presenting the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom. And as most of you know, the National Underground Railroad to Freedom was created by the US government back in 1998 as an affiliation network to help assist partners in commemorating, preserving, and interpreting the history of resistance to slavery through escape and flight. Although new to the program, Dr. R noted that since its creation, the program has designated 767 sites, additional programs and facilities as part of the Network to Freedom. But fewer of 5 of these partners were designated to recognize the history of the 1,000 of Underground Railroad escapes to freedom along the southern border with Mexico, as a lot of the freedom riders would actually go into Mexico and were well treated. So he briefly discussed the history of the freedom to Mexico, as well as the recent collaborative addresses in the geographic gap, and proposed new networks in terms of better representing the historic Southern pathway to freedom. And this work is basically ongoing. The final presentation was with Mr. Gilbert Correa and the Monument to Columbus of Mexico City. His presentation discussed how the monument to Columbus that was recently formally located in Mexico City's iconic Avenue Paseo de la Fama, that the monument to Columbus was a very huge 15-meter stature, which included the 5 exclusive bronze statues of Christopher Columbus. And when the monument was created and inaugurated in the 1870s, it had stood in Avenue Paseo de la Reforma for all these years. It was formally removed from the Paseo due to the scheduled restoration by the National Institute of Anthropology and History, otherwise known as ZANA, and also to help prevent its toppling after officials heard about news of a planned protest on the 12th of October in 2020. It was replaced with the roundabout of the Women Who Fight. The government of Mexico City decided then to relocate the statues of Columbus and the friars to the Museum of the Viceroy. So these were very moving presentations, dealing not only with indigenous tribes, indigenous peoples, but also histories that go back 300 to 400 years, and bringing us to today's most important items and challenges that are binational and transboundary, and look at these as not only cultural corridors, to look at the political actions to make these things happen, but also to then focus in the future to making these World Heritage Sites. Thank you so much.
My name is Cequyna Moore, and I'm the Program Director of the Monuments Toolkit project. 2023 marks the 2nd year anniversary of our program. Over the course of the 2 years, we met with public officials, civic leaders, academics, and the general public about their responses to monuments of oppression and contested monuments, and how they went about addressing them, whether it was through removal, recontextualization, reinterpretation, and co-location. We even saw the conversations that related to the creation of new monuments that tell the fuller story of our shared history, and that includes marginalized communities. These conversations culminated in Monument Summer, a season of dialogue. This symposium-style event took place in 2 cities, Charleston, South Carolina, and San Diego, California. We were excited to partner with Mother Emanuel AME Church and the San Diego History Center. These conversations featured conversations and dialogue with Mayors John Tecklenburg and Mayor William Bell, as well as a whole host of prominent public historians. We look forward to doing more events like this in the future. Also this year, we presented the frameworks of the toolkit at the ICOMOS General Assembly in Sydney, Australia, and the World Heritage Symposium in San Antonio, Texas. The presentation of the frameworks resonated with the global community. As we continue the work of the Monuments Toolkit project, we look forward to collaborating and working with the global community to foster conversations and connect resources that shape the changing monuments landscape. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Musiba. I'm the chair of the International Exchange Program, IEP, and also a board member. I'm actually happy to announce that we're going to be kicking off our 2024 IEP, which just opened on November 6, 2023, and application will close on January 1st, 2024 for interns, and January 15th, 2024 for hosts. We are really excited and looking forward to actually sort of receiving 2024 applications and reviewing them. But we are a couple of things which we need. I'd like to remind everyone, we are in need of sponsorship and donation to support interns during their internships. And we hope that the funds collected through donations and sponsorship will be used to cover intern travel expenses, room and board, and their participation in IEP orientation in Washington, D.C. So I encourage everyone and everybody to actually sort of help us to make this happen. We have had last year a wonderful group, this past year, wonderful group of students, sort of interns, and they did some wonderful work. And we like to continue to do that. The other thing we like to do is actually expand the pool of interns, particularly those coming from Global South, countries such as places like in Africa, and I mean communication with a couple of organizations on the African continent, including the AMAFA and the Research Institute in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa as a possible place to host some of our interns for this coming year, and also the South African Heritage Resource Agency and the Heritage Western Cape. That's Western Cape in South Africa. So those 3 agencies, I've been in touch with them, and we hope that we'd actually be able to, one of those maybe we'll be able to host some of the interns for this 2024. Furthermore, we are looking forward for an increased number of applicants this coming year. So please, I beg you all to share this information with friends and potential hosts, which actually may be able to bring in our interns next year and actually sort of host them. So again, we also need members to
to actually be on a committee. And if you're interested, please reach out to Katelynn Cunningham at programs at worldheritageusa.org. I hope that, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Some of you we met in San Antonio, and I'm actually looking forward next year to also meet more people and more members. Again, thank you very much for your support for 2023, and we are looking forward for 2024, hoping that you will increase your support for our program. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Last year, it was announced that World Heritage USA was awarded a grant from the Network to Freedom program to support our International Underground Railroad Research Project. And I'm happy to say that in 2023, that project came to fruition. We were able to use that grant to hire an emerging professional, Amelia Sanchez-Gonzalez, who is affiliated with our Emerging Professionals Research. She's a young heritage professional from Mexico with a background of studying in Europe and also the Middle East. And she was able, with the support of that grant, to go do field research in northern Mexico to learn about the community of Nacimiento, which was the focus of our research, in order to see the international connections between the Underground Railroad in the United States and the pathways to freedom that people embarked upon to travel not just to the north of the United States, but also into Canada, Mexico, and even further abroad. During her project, she met with community members in Nacimiento, heard about their stories, learned about the histories, learned about the descendants and how they themselves view their community and how it connects to the past. And from her work, we were able to host a wonderful webinar, which you can access on our YouTube channel, which talked more about the history of the Underground Railroad in the United States and its impact internationally. And in the end, our work with the International Underground Railroad Project was nominated and officially recognized as an official program with the Network to Freedom program as part of the National Park Service. So on their website and on ours, you can find links to the story map where you can learn more about the Underground Railroad and the stories of the people who traveled along it, both in the United States, Mexico, as well as Canada. And there's some information there about the Dutch colonies as well. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to Amelia for all of her hard work during this project. A big thank you to the NPS Network to Freedom for all of their support. And we're looking forward to pursuing and continuing this project in the future.
So I wanted to highlight some of our advocacy actions in the past year. First, on appropriations and funding, we have been advocating for congressional funding for the State Department accounts that funds UNESCO and the World Heritage Committee. This has been a challenging problem for a number of years, largely due to the United States having withdrawn from UNESCO and congressional prohibitions on funding international organizations like UNESCO that have recognized Palestine as a member state. The last time the US paid World Heritage Committee dues was in 2011. And the current annual dues are estimated to be less than $600,000. For several years, the Biden administration has requested appropriations for UNESCO and statutory waivers of the funding prohibitions. And earlier this year, the United States formally rejoined UNESCO. In addition to testimony in support of UNESCO and World Heritage Committee funding, we have met with senior administration officials urging payment of our dues. One factor in support of our greater engagement in World Heritage is the opportunity for the US to more effectively advocate for World Heritage and related cultural programs as part of our international diplomacy. The administration has used the need to counter growing Chinese influence in international diplomacy as a rationale for paying UNESCO dues. Similarly, greater engagement in international organizations can also counter Russian influence especially in the context of its destruction of Ukrainian cultural heritage and action by the World Heritage Committee to include several Ukrainian sites on the list of World Heritage in Danger earlier this year. We are optimistic that the U.S. will pay our World Heritage Committee dues. Of course, as you have heard, the Congress is experiencing unprecedented dysfunction, including on such fundamental issues as providing money to fund the government. The Senate has supported increased State Department funding by bipartisan votes. The House, however, has recommended sharp reductions in funding by starkly partisan votes. Stay tuned. We have also long supported action by the Park Service and Department of the Interior to advance World Heritage nominations, including the recent inscription of the Hopewell Ceremonial Earthworks. We look forward to the successful inscription next year of the Moravian Church settlement sites, and also the planned nomination of the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. We consistently urge the administration to advance the decision to prepare the nomination for the U.S. civil rights sites. During our San Antonio symposium, we discussed several opportunities to advance cooperation with Mexico on potential World Heritage sites. And we might also consider focusing attention on one of the tentative list 4 marine sites, such as Pacific remote islands, and possibly an expansion of the Dayton aviation site to include other places important to aviation and space technologies. Many of our other actions and statements are posted on our website, including in late November, we joined a global chorus of cultural advocates calling for negotiators at the COP-UN Climate Conference to put cultural heritage, arts, and creative industries at the heart of climate action. Led by a broad coalition including ICOMOS, the Climate Action Network, and the Union of Concerned Scientists, we are urging a groundbreaking joint work decision that would trigger UN policies to enable culture to contribute fully to climate solutions. We were honored that this past July, Doug Comer traveled to New York and moderated a United Nations panel on the role that culture and heritage can play as a driver in advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And you can find statements in which we joined the U.S. Committee of the Blue Shield and others in calling attention to the loss of life and earthquake damage to cultural sites in Morocco and Libya, and also separately for the loss of life and destruction of cultural sites caused by the wildfires in Maui. We have also long supported actions to protect Chaco Culture National Historical Park and World Heritage Site from oil and gas development within 10 miles of the park's boundary. We look forward to working with you on these and other policy initiatives in the years ahead. Thank you.
So as those of you who follow our regular programming know, we've been running a series of monthly 1-hour webinars, and that will continue in calendar 24. We've, as you know, and you can find on our YouTube page, we've done 11 of the 25 US World Heritage Sites with 1-hour webinars, discussing their outstanding universal values, their management concerns, potential threats from outside their boundaries, and other issues pertinent. We have been integrating discussion of Indigenous cultural values as we have taken these places up for webinar discussion, and we'll continue to do so in 24. We will, at a minimum, we'll add 3 additional US World Heritage Sites with a webinar, beginning in February with Olympic National Park World Heritage Site, which itself has multiple tribal affiliated associations. We will also cover Great Smoky Mountains National Park and Wrangell St. Elias and Glacier Bay, which uniquely are two national parks combined in one World Heritage Site with three Canadian preserved areas, Kluane, Chachinchini, and Alsek reserves, to make it the largest land-based World Heritage Site in combination. Beyond that, we're going to look at a number of more generic topics like World Heritage in danger and heritage in conflict zones. We did a webinar 2 years ago on Ukraine, just as that conflict was commencing. We will update that with some new coverage this next year, and also possibly look into the conflict in the Middle East as heritage is threatened in all these places. We do want to bring to people's attention the role that a sister park relationship can provide. The Park Service has, U.S. National Park Service has a sister park program in which parks in the U.S. and parks in another country with similar features and resources collaborate, share, do joint training, and such. There are at least 12 of the U.S. World Heritage Sites that have a sister international park partner, not all of which have to be World Heritage Sites in the other country, but we're looking to bring that to attention and focus more on getting all of the U.S. sites sistered up, so to speak, with another site, preferably another World Heritage Site. One in particular that we want to bring attention to is Yellowstone National Park and the Ngorongoro Crater World Heritage Site in Tanzania, and extending into the Serengeti Plain for that matter, as a place where there has been an existing sister relationship that, because of many things going on, diverting attention in both places, the relationship has faltered a bit. We want to strengthen it, bring it back into focus, and use that as an example for others to follow. We do want to talk about international cooperation. We've mentioned the course of this annual meeting, a lot of activity and interest in Mexico and the cross-border issues with Mexico, including establishing several binational World Heritage Site opportunities. Big Bend in the U.S., Big Bend National Park is already a tentative list site. Its counterpart across the border is not. And the reverse is true with El Pinacate, World Heritage Site in Mexico, and with no pending tentative list site yet in the U.S. with Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument and Cabeza Prieta Wildlife Refuge, which seem to be prime opportunities for binational collaboration and recognition. We do want to take another look at places where disaster has struck, not just war or conflict, but like in Hawaii with the Lahaina fires and the preparation for other such things to come. The Smithsonian has a cultural rescue program, and other organizations have some of the things. We want to call attention to that through another webinar over the course of the year. And we'll see what issues come up around the world that we need to pay attention to fill out our monthly webinar list. So watch our website, look for our announcements, and join us each month as we go through these concerns and issues and opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Destry. So everybody can understand now what a rich year in terms of activities and outcomes we've had in 2023. I want to share now the results of the election we had for both the new candidates for our Board of Trustees and also the Board of Trustee members that stood for re-election. I'm very, very happy to say that both of those slates have passed. There were 29 yeas and 0 nays, yes, and 1 abstain for the new candidates, and 27 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention for the candidates who stood for re-election. And they're just an amazing group of people. I'm so pleased to have them on board with us, and we can look forward to even more spectacular year next year. Recently, we formed a domestic supporting nonprofit to our ICOMOS National Committee. In the coming year, we will open this to anyone who wishes to support our national committee. This will bring the policies, programs, and activities of our national committee to a much larger public and provide the means to collaborate with domestic organizations that have interests complementary to ours. So we plan to form coalitions and collaborations with a variety of other organizations with, as we say, complementary objectives. Membership benefits will include receiving our monthly newsletter and other communiques, including heritage alerts, by means of our social media team. World Heritage USA members will also enjoy reduced registration fees for attendance at our yearly conference and symposium and annual celebration of World Heritage. And as I mentioned, we will strive to form reciprocal agreements with organizations that have goals and missions completely complementary to ours. To professionals and scholars in the fields of culture and heritage, the annual membership fee for ICOMOS USA is a bargain. It's really a small price to pay for membership in the only truly global network of culture and heritage professionals. And along with the other benefits of membership that belonging to our national committee brings. Yet that membership fee, realistically, can be a barrier to exactly those we need to move our organization ahead in the future. And this includes young people with an interest in what we do, who are still deciding on the path that they will take in the future, and also members of groups that have been overlooked and oppressed. It also includes those academics and practitioners who will be interested in learning what we do and who might well decide to join our international committee in the future. We must continually search for those who can contribute to our national committee and to ICOMOS and to the World Heritage Program. And our supporting nonprofit provides one means, and a very important means, for doing that. Now, ICOMOS USA members are also automatically members of World Heritage USA. The campaign for additional World Heritage USA members will begin in earnest in January 2024, following our first Board of Trustees meeting of the year. 2024 will also see an increase in our international activities. As Destry mentioned, we will expand the International Underground Railroad to Freedom network of sites, monuments, and stories to other countries and the Americas. We all have inherited the heritage of slavery, and we have that in common. And we found that other countries in the Americas have a very strong interest in both the International Underground Railroad Network to Freedom and also the Monuments Toolkit. So as we do this, we'll generate case studies regarding problematic monuments in these countries. We will begin establishing, as Destry also mentioned, sister World Heritage sites, patterning this after the NPS Sister Park program. And this is very interesting, I think, and intriguing, and a real potential asset to our national committee. We will offer fundraising tours to World Heritage sites led by distinguished scholars and site managers. The first of these will be a tour to Monte Albán in Oaxaca, led by Nelly Robles, who's a world-renowned archaeologist, and rightly so. In 2023, our annual conference and symposium, as well as our annual celebration of World Heritage, were held together from November the 1st through the 3rd in San Antonio, Texas. It was really very wonderful. So you can see from some of the slides here of the presentation activities. In 2024, they will be held at different times. That, again, the conference and symposium and celebration were held at the same time in San Antonio. Next year, we're going to be separating them. And we'll be announcing dates and themes following our next National Committee Board meeting to be held in mid-January 2024. We really look forward to your participation in these coming events. It should be spectacular. In 2024, we're going to have a focus on capacity building, and you're going to receive, many of you, a special year-end appeal. Please be generous. We will make special effort to acknowledge those who donate, believe me. I would like to thank the presenters today, and I would also like to convey my special thanks to our wonderful, exemplary Board of Trustees. I've never seen a group of more hardworking and intelligent people, and they're a true pleasure to work with. And I also send my special thanks to our members. Please stay tuned to announcements regarding our plans for 2024. We invite you all, as members of our National Committee, to become more involved. We suggest that you join and be active in scientific committees, and we encourage you to run for office in the committee of your choice. If you have questions about that, just let me know. Also, we will be in contact with some of you to serve on special committees this year. Those of you with an interest in one or more of our programs and activities, I encourage you to step forward. Well, 2023 was an incredible year. 2024, I think, just has all of the benchmarks of being a pivotal year in the history of our National Committee. So I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, have a wonderful holiday season. And as they say, see you next year. Thank you so much.